everybody, it's Bob Smith. This is the Outdated Wrestling Hour podcast. I want to make an announcement here. You're going to hear this little placard in front of all of our shows for the next month or two. Because I am having some relatively complicated surgery and don't know how long I'm going to be off my feet, we have recorded about a dozen podcasts in advance of the surgery and post-haste, because I don't know how long the recovery period is going to be. So if we make any references on these shows to, well, stuff that's already happened or stuff that was several weeks ago, forgive us. It's simply a situation where we had to do what we had to do to get these shows finished. Hey, enough of my yakking. Let's have some fun. It's the new Outdated Wrestling Hour podcast. We now return you to our regularly scheduled program. It's your one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, where A. Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrestling, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Today, we're going to look at wrestling collectibles, figurines, trading cards, and we're going to look at wrestling belts with special guest Joey Broussard. Souvenirs. Back in my day, we had one thing. Programs. There was no t-shirts. There was no wrestling figurines. There was no replica belts. Nothing. None of that stuff. You know, we would do, though. When we were kids, we would take our programs, and after a particularly bloody match, we would go and dip our programs into the blood on the canvas and bring it home. Sorry, I showed my other side there. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Don't call me a ghoul, you young... Everybody, and welcome to... Put that down. I'm not paying you to play with your Pete Sanchez figure. Where'd you get that anyway? What are you playing with wrestling action figures for? It's Joe Puccio. I can't keep, something. I'm going to take that away from you.
Bob, you just outed me. I can't believe it. You outed me on the podcast.
Well, first of all, nobody's going to believe it because I don't think there's a Pete Sanchez action figure. Either Pete Sanchez. There were two, But in any event, hi, welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Thanks for coming back. We got a kind of a special show, a little different. I don't collect wrestling stuff. Nothing. I don't even have a lot of wrestling magazines from the day. I just don't. My life has taken me in too many different areas, and I'd leave wrestling for a while, and I've moved maybe 4 times since I left the wrestling magazine. Every time I did, I threw out a bunch of magazines and all those. You say, I'm never going to need these again, and then you realize a decade later, I wish I still had those, one of those things. We're going to take a look at stuff that people collect these days. And I dare say, now I like fine Swiss wristwatches, right? It's a collectible thing. I have several. Here's the thing. Some people collect and flip them and trade them. And a lot of people like to buy Rolexes because they appreciate and value and things like that. Well, we're going to talk about belts with our special guest, Joey Broussard, who's going to close the show. But let's start now with Mr. Joe Puccio, who happens to have a bunch of wrestling memorabilia, and I don't know exactly what. So, Joe, why don't you bestow upon us tales of your collection of mainly wrestling action figures, right?
Yeah, I do have let's talk about that first. I mean, the action figures I started collecting when I was a kid. When I started watching, this was the height of the LJN action figures. For I'm sure most of the listeners remember, they were the original WWF figures that came out. I feel like maybe they starting in 1984. First series were Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik and the Junkyard Dog and Jimmy Snuka, Andre. So I started collecting them as a kid. And for the next several years, I kept collecting them, Christmas, birthdays, things like that. And then, you get a little older and you kind of stop. And then the last couple of series that they did before they went under this company, I was a little too old and I stopped. And I wish I hadn't, because it's the later series, that last series that they came out with were really hard to get. They're worth a lot of money now. Fast forward to maybe starting 10 years ago, I just decided, you know what, let me see which of the ones that I never got. Let me see where they are, how available they are. And I went ahead and little by little, I purchased them to where now I actually have the full collection, including, I don't know why I'm saying this as if I should be so proud of this. What am I doing? I'm getting action figures, but including the Sergeant Slaughter action figure, which is the sort of the holy grail in that series, because that's the one that you could only get back then. You could only get it through mail order. So you remember back when you were a kid, when they would have, you could only get something through like proofs of purchases, where you would have to like cut out the proofs of purchases, mail it in with, let's say, like $5, and they would mail it that way. That was the only way you can get that. So I was actually able to get that a few years ago. So now I have the whole collection. What do I have it for? I mean, what is it really doing for me right now? Nothing, other than it makes me feel good. I go down to my basement. I look at the setup. It's all kind of there. My wife is not exactly thrilled with it, but at the very least, it's in the basement. So it's not like she's got to look at it every day.
One
But
thing about marriage, you can't collect anything stupid,
exactly.
and most people look at it and go, "What are you doing?
Right.
What do you need these for? You
Right.
bought these in 1990. What do you need them for now?"
It's true. I mean, I get it. And there's part of me that wishes I wasn't a collector of that stuff, because it's sort of like, it's sort of less stressful. It's a weight off. You don't have to, I was always kind of going on eBay and seeing, oh, look, this went down in price and let me try to make a bid for this, or let me buy this, So I think you have much less stress not having to worry about that stuff. But I want to say, on the flip side, I don't go crazy with this stuff other than those figures. There's nothing that I have to get. It's not like I'm scouring the internet every day and, I got to get this or I got to get that. I really don't. It's just there are certain things that always kind of appeal to me. And I think the action figures I just always liked because it was a big part of my childhood.
Okay. I did have two at one point when I was with PWI.
The
I was in it,
LJN?
right? No. Well, I think the Harley race I had was from LJ, and I only had 2 dolls. Actually, 3. One I just put in a drawer. The other one was the 2-pack of Abdul the Butcher versus Carlos Colon from Hasbro. Those little miniature
Oh,
size
wow.
ones,
Yeah,
a
that's
little bit
cool.
smaller.
Yeah.
But I put Carlos in the drawer. But by the way, he had the gig marks in his forehead, which I thought was great. And so did Abdullah. But also, we played a game. There was like a shoebox on top of a shelf, and we would this is how serious-minded we were all the time at PWI. You would throw Abdullah at Harley to try to get the crown to come off his head. If you're not, it was more points.
Right.
And we had so much fun because you put the crown on Harley Race's head, it was hard to get it off. It was a good
Right.
fit.
Yep.
So you had to hit it just right to get the crown off, and you got extra points for that. It wasn't as prestigious as the Inter-Office Wrestling Championship, but Bill Apter held that most of the time anyway, so what can I tell you? So let's look back a little bit. I mean, the action figures, again, folks, I don't collect, so this is what I've gleaned from being with the magazine. When I was in PWI, I think I was there for when they first had ads for wrestling belts. They first had
Mhm.
and then the collectibles thing started to kick in. With these dolls, like you said, LJN and Hasbro were the first thing I knew about. And now there's more companies you can name, including some of these companies that make these unbelievably realistic, fantastic hundreds of dollars wrestling figurines that are so lifelike and such good detail.
Mhm.
Have you seen those?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head though. With now it's like every company. I mean, it's like anything else, right? How there's like so much of everything now, even in collectibles. You go to any of these, I was going to say Toys R Us, but that doesn't even really exist anymore. But
No,
I
it
mean,
doesn't.
you go to a place that has these things, or even if it's a Target or a Walmart or something like that, you look on the shelves and there's like 10 or 15 different brands that make different series. And oh, this is, you got to get the series 2 level, this collector series, diamond series and all this. There's just so many different things. I don't know how anybody could keep track now.
By the way, I lied. I do have a wrestling figurine here in its original packaging, and I threw it onto a shelf. Now, there was this discount store near me. I forget which desk. It's so long ago. But I bought 3 things. Number 1, the Bob and Doug McKenzie action figures, from SCTV.
Oh, okay.
It wa and I never opened it. I figured it's gonna have
Yeah.
collectability. I also have Wimpy and Eugene the Jeep from Popeye, 'cause, J. Wellington Wimpy is a role model for me. I mean, there's no question about it. But the 3rd in a closet in the other room, I'm thinking about it right now, unopened, is an Al Snow with head action figure, which I got literally for $1 somewhere.
Now, was that what was available, or did you specifically want the Al
No,
Snow doll?
no, I'm walking by, it was $1. I said, "I'll grab this. What the hell?" And you know why I said that? Because I knew what the market was for wrestling dolls. I figured there's gonna be some I could eBay this for $15 up the road. Now I
Yeah,
can probably get $50 for it.
probably, yeah.
So always thinking, gotta make a buck, man. Hey, sure, our SM7Bs don't come cheap, you know what I'm saying? It's just the way it works.
One thing I did just want to say quickly is that you just mentioned magazines too, that even your own PWIs that you wrote in, a lot of them you probably don't even have. But that's another thing I will say is that you asked me what wrestling wise I was really heavily into collecting, and it's 2 things. It's the action figures, the early action figures, I should say,
Mhm,
just the LJNs, and wrestling magazines back in the day. I just had to have every WWE magazine or WWF magazine. I had to have every PWI. Those were the 2 big ones for me,
mhm,
and I still have them. There were many years where I never missed a month. So I'm a pretty organized person. So in my basement, I have them in the bins, the ones they sell in Target, the plastic bins that you put stuff in. I have them in order in these bins labeled, on the top of it. And it's funny because that is something that as recently as maybe a few months ago, I'm considering just selling. There are a couple of wrestling stores in New York, New Jersey that are looking to buy old wrestling magazines. And I'm thinking maybe just sort of getting whatever I can for them. I do know specifically that the old WWF magazines, those are in demand. If you go to a lot of these stores, I don't know about the others because the other ones are kind of like they're at conventions a lot and, people are selling them. But as far as those original WWF magazines, the one when they started in 83 all the way to,
mhm.
let's say, maybe 90, those are pretty much in demand. So I know I can probably get decent money for them. It's just this part of me that I can't explain it. It's hard for me to part with them. Do I look at them every day? No. When's the last time I read one? I can't tell you. And I just don't know what it is because as we get older, it's like, what do we really need these things for, right?
Memories,
Yeah.
man, that's all. Memories, tangible memories they can hold in your hand. Other collectibles, remember they've been known as wrestling buddies and bleacher buddies, those
Yeah.
stuffed dolls from you beat up Randy Savage in your bedroom and that type of thing. I understood the appeal, though.
Yeah.
I got why you'd give that to a little kid, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, another thing people tend not to talk about a lot are wrestling trading cards. I think the granddaddy of them all is the most collectible ones out there. The ones that of all people, Norman Kietzer put out around 1983, the Wrestling All Star set issued by the Wrestling News magazine. And they were collectible trading cards. You ordered them all at once, I think. You would order the whole set. And now they are considered a rarity amongst card collectors when it comes to pro wrestling. You get a couple of them autographed, you could sell your collection for a whole mess of money.
So these, to clarify, were not cards you could buy like packs in a store?
No, no, no. I think you bought them through mail order as if you were
Oh,
ordering a
okay.
magazine subscription, the same address and all that stuff.
That kinda
But then
takes a lot of the
again,
fun away from it because I always when I used to buy the cards, baseball cards or even the first wrestling cards, you kinda would like to go to the store and just buy a pack, see if you get any doubles, see who you get.
well, you got to remember though, there were no wrestling cards when Kaiser did this.
Yeah, okay.
It was a
That was the
totally original thing. I mean, It was the granddaddy of a couple years later. Well, after the expansion, Topps makes WWE cards now, and I think Upper Deck makes AEW cards. I'm pretty sure that's true. There were WCW cards in the early 90s, but all it said on the back of the pack was copyright World Championship Wrestling. Are you telling me they printed them themselves? Oh, no wonder they didn't last long. Good gosh, no, you don't do that. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
But then again, I worked for WCW, and I can tell you, nobody knew how anything worked back then. So I don't know what to say. I shouldn't put them down, but no, that was confused mess all the time. Anyway, the reported rarest wrestling toy, or it's an action figure. Supposedly one of the highest collectible action figures is called Moonbelly Kamala action figure.
Yes.
You've heard of this?
I do know about this. This is something Matt Cardona has talked about on his podcast or whatever he has. This is the rare Kamala, right? The one that they only made like a couple of them or something. Yeah.
Right. And it's got the moon belly. They used to have that body paint with it looked like the moon or half a moon on his stomach. And apparently a few of them had it, the rest of them didn't.
Right.
So this is like an error card in baseball.
Yep. Exactly.
Like baseball cards, if like I think there was one that Bob Uecker, of all people, posed for, and he was batting left-handed when he was really a right-handed batter. That became a collectible. Because it's like, he goofed on everybody. And error cards, misspellings of names, wrong hats, all that kinds of stuff. So I don't know what makes them more collectible, but you should see the hubbub when a baseball card is wrong. I
do remember that. That was big back then when baseball cards were so big. Do people even collect baseball cards anymore?
Yes. Now, the collectability of the newer cards aren't what they used to be because there's too many of them. They're too common, as they say. They're too common. It got popular, but the bubbles burst. But the older the stuff is, the more rare it is. It's still a booming collector's market like crazy.
I have complete sets of baseball cards from a certain era, like when I was heavily into, it was only a couple of years for me as a kid that I did it. I want to say maybe like 1987, 1988, with a couple of years that I collected Topps, Fleer, I think it was called, Upper Deck, I would get. And I have the full collections. And again, I'm a pretty organized person, so I have them all in the binder and they're all probably in mint condition. I have no idea. I don't even know what something like that would be even worth. Because I mean, it's not like it's that long ago. It's like the mid to late 80s. Would that even be considered classic? You just don't really hear about kids. I don't know. I never hear about kids really talking about that nowadays, collecting cards. Well, they're on their phones, right? At least,
yes,
we can say that.
Too. Oh God, everywhere you look. Yeah. Now I'm going to end this with a funny story.
Sure.
I think it's funny. I don't want to insult anybody ever. But I have to tell this story. I am out with a beautiful woman. And for some reason, I get this beautiful woman to come with me to SummerSlam in 2002. It's the woman I married. When I met my wife, guys, just picture Mary Jane Parker from Spider-Man. Okay, that's what she looked like. Just knockout. So somehow I convinced her to come with me to go to SummerSlam in 2002. That was the one where Brock Lesnar beat The Rock. Okay. And they had the match between some kind of gimmick match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, where at the end Triple H beat him in the head with
the sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. So it's before that card, and there's a steakhouse or at least there used to be at the Marriott across from the Nassau Coliseum where the SummerSlam was, and great steaks. I knew I had eaten them before, and I was like knocked out of how good the food was. It was fantastic. So we went and had steak, and it was great. We're sitting there. It's about, I'd say, an hour before the card begins. We're getting ready to leave. And here they come. These gigantic 250-pound guys, one by one, with their wrestling belts over their shoulders. And she goes, what's that? I said, oh, obviously those are wrestling fans. They're coming in to maybe get something to eat before. Maybe they're from out of town. They're staying. They're just wrestling fans. Why do these full-grown men have belts? You see, I didn't want to talk to Mr. Broussard. I didn't want to say this story to him, but she was like, I hate to say it, she didn't think, let's put it this way, she didn't think it was attractive. It didn't help.
To put it nicely, right?
Yes, it did not help these gentlemen. And the trouble is they were all these huge lumbering guys. Now, guys out there, I'm not putting anybody down. I do not understand the mindset. Collecting wrestling belts, I get it. I understand that. Mark important championships or your
Sure.
favorite wrestlers, but to slap it over your to slap it over your shoulder and go walking down the street, I will never understand it. Joe, just say whatever you want.
100% agree. And I'm not just saying that because this is something that my friends and I talk about when we go to shows, when we're at wrestling events and you're sitting in the crowd and you watch people come in. And mind you, I'm not talking about someone who just bought the belt. Let's say someone went to the merchandise stand, they purchased the belt and they're just kind of showing it off, goofing around. That's one
Yeah,
thing, whatever, that's
yeah,
fine. But I'm talking about people that came in from their car, from the street, from the train, whatever it is, walking into an arena and they're wearing it over their shoulders as if they won it, as if they just got done at a wrestling meet and they just won a match. And me and my friends look at each other and we're like, what is the point of this? Now, granted, I am not a belt collector, even like you said, just to collect. That's just one thing that I just never really, it's just not my thing. If you are, that's fine. That's certainly, there's, whether it's action figures, magazines, belts, that's your business. But the fact is, why wrestling fans will go to shows and they'll wear these things proudly walking around. They go to the bathroom. They get up in between matches and they take it to the bathroom with them. And they have it in there. I'm like, I don't get it. I'll never get it. I just don't understand it. It's become a fashion accessory. And why they do it, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe somebody can, maybe some of our listeners will have a hot take on that and they'll be able to write in and let us know what the appeal is. But I like your wife said, it's like, look, I don't think it's exactly becoming. I don't think they're getting a lot of phone numbers wearing these
yeah.
belts. I don't think girls are looking at them saying, wow, that guy's really hot. Look at that, 1988 Randy Savage Intercontinental title that he's wearing around his thing. I mean, are they really saying that? No. So it's like,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't get it. But again, maybe someone could shed some light. I don't know.
Yes. All I know is this, and I mean this, life is short, life is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever your hobbies are,
I know.
enjoy them to the hilt, including you guys who walk around with a belt around your shoulder. However, that's a fashion accessory I'll never understand. I just don't understand it. I don't understand what you're trying to prove by it, particularly if you're just walking down the street en route to someplace.
Right.
Joe, you and I experienced this
Yes.
ourselves, didn't we?
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
And in a pizzeria, and we're like, "Why? What are you doing?" I don't get it. Unless, let me play devil's advocate, maybe they're comparing their belts with other collectors who were sitting near them.
But you know what? One quick thing I want to say about that, I always wonder, it's one thing to have them on while you're at an event because it's like at least you're in the environment of other fans. So it's like, okay, you're at Madison Square Garden, you're at a WWE show, you're wearing a belt. Okay, not people aren't going to give you a second look. But it's like when we went to this pizza place the day we went to the NWA show and we see these guys just walking into a random pizza place. Okay, it's down the block from the show, but that doesn't mean anything. It's a busy area. It's regular people are in the pizza place. I always wonder to myself, like, what are these other people that have no idea why they're wearing these belts? What are they thinking? Are they thinking like, look at these lunatics? Like, what are they doing off the street wearing these belts? Like, do they know? Are they saying to themselves, oh, wait, they must be going to a wrestling show? Or are they just saying they must be, two screws loose?
And again, I don't you know me. I don't besmirch anybody for whatever you wanna do. Like I say, life's short. I just don't understand this one.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's getting you ahead anywhere. It's just, that's all I'm saying, guys. I just don't understand. If you again, maybe I'm full of beans, they may just be comparing belts to each other and showing their if you're showing your belt off to another belt collector in a wrestling arena, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it's there for. Absolutely. But I mean, just walking into a 3-star motel or hotel with a belt over your shoulder, I don't get. I just don't understand it.
Nor do I.
And that's where I'm gonna leave it because I don't wanna again, guys, I don't wanna offend anybody out there. I really don't. But I just don't understand. I never will. It's just beyond me. It would be like, I don't know, what do you compare that to? What do you compare it to? Like you're collecting someone else, you walk around with your, blow up doll? I don't know.
I don't know because it's such a specific type of collectible because it in essence it's a belt, so it is technically supposed to be worn. I get that, but not
Yeah.
not by you. I mean, it's it's worn by other people, and then you get it as a collectible, right? Like I'm not walking around with my action figures on my shoulders.
Well, yeah. And you know what, though? I go to the Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany, the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany, and they have this fantastic collection of both original and replica championship belts, and it's awe-inspiring. It's great because it's depicting the history right there in a Hall of Fame, and I think it makes all the sense in the world. Joe, thank you for being here. I don't know what to say other than enjoy your Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth action figures, if you'd be so kind, and tell them about your website.
Sure, sure. Thank you for that. So, yep, generationxwire.com. We have trying to think the latest stuff we have. We have a review of the new U2 EP that came out that JC Correa reviewed for us. We have a feature on Scout Taylor Compton, the actress for The Runaways, the movie about the musical group The Runaways. She was Lita Ford. She was also in the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. She has a couple new movies coming out, so I had a great conversation with her. Stephanie Powers is up already. Good conversation with her. She spoke about her acting career, about the William Holden Foundation that she runs. Lots of different things, some new things coming up. I'm always working on something, but those are probably the latest. So again, generationxwire.com. I appreciate anyone checking it out.
There you go. Boy, The Runaways. I was in high school when they were new.
Were you a big fan of theirs?
I bought 2 of their albums, but I never listened to them.
Why is that?
I just like the covers.
There you go.
I wish I was kidding. Anyway, folks, hold on for a little bit. We have Joey Broussard. We're going to talk about wrestling belts. And from somebody who really will give you the nitty-gritty of collecting, who makes them, just the nuts and bolts. And we had a nice phone call together, and I hope you enjoy hearing it. We will be right back.
This is Joe Walsh. One thing I do when I'm not playing rock and roll is get on the air as an amateur radio operator. Also called ham radio, is a communication service provided by ordinary people just like you and me. We have a national emergency communication system in place 24/7, 365. Find out more about amateur radio at arrl.org/What is ham radio? See you on the air.
All right. We just heard a lot about Joe Puccio and my predilections when it comes to wrestling memorabilia, but I never bought any belts. I don't have any wrestling belts. And when I was with the magazines way back when, they were just starting to become in vogue. So I needed some advice on this. And I looked around and I checked around, and somebody contacted me who happens to be really into wrestling belts. His name is Joey Broussard, calling us all the way from Florida. How you doing, Joey?
Hey, Bob, I'm doing great. Good to be here. Happy to finally make your acquaintance.
As someone who is on the outside looking in at most wrestling memorabilia, you're going to have to educate me on who the belt makers are, why it's a popular hobby. Anything you want to say, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, me personally, I can tell you my experience with belts. I started as a fan in the very early 80s watching world-class championship wrestling on Saturday nights. I would see the winners with these belts, and I knew what wrestling was, I knew what boxing was, and I just thought every person that won any match of any combat sport walked away with the belt. So I was immediately intrigued, to say the least. And over time, it's like, so I'm getting to watch my hometown promotion, which was Mid-South Wrestling, Bill Watts, and see their belts, and I would start noticing the differences in them and the similarities as well. And it's always been one of those things about me, is that I've always wanted to know a little bit more. I've always been interested in knowledge. I mean, my parents brought me a set of encyclopedias as a Christmas gift when everybody else was getting Nintendos. So it's just one of those things. I just kind of kept investigating and reading publications such as PWI and the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling and Wrestling Eye and all of the Kaiser magazines and anything I could get my hands on. And basically in all of those, I'd see all these pictures of belts, and I just never really fell out of that very niche specialized part of the wrestling business. Heading into the 90s with the internet, so much more information was available. We were able as fans to get a lot more behind the curtains information, and yeah, I managed to find a very small, specialized group of fans that were into collecting wrestling belts. And through that, I managed to get my hands on some over the years. And that was 25, 30 years ago. So yeah, it's been a long, long, long road to get to where I'm at today in my collection. But yeah, it's been a fun one.
Well, I'll ask a really, really obvious question. What do you got?
What do I have? Well, there's what I have and what I've had. I've owned multiple belts made by Reggie Parks and Dave Milliken, who Reggie Parks specifically is very well known as the creator of some of the most iconic designs that the World Wrestling Federation, NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, and many of the territories used in the 80s. And right now, I only have one Reggie Parks belt because since he passed away about 5 years ago, there's obviously not going to be any more made. So they become highly collectible, highly sought after, and highly valuable. So it's almost like a lot of people say that's, you're spending car money to buy a belt nowadays by, some of these makers. But yeah, I've got the USWA Unified belt held by Jerry the King Lawler, because Lawler's always been, I don't really have a favorite wrestler, but I've got a top 5 to 10 that kind of, they can all rotate in and out of the top couple of spots. But yeah, the King has always been one of my favorites. So I managed to get my hands on one of those unified heavyweight belts as an exact copy made by the original maker that was used by Jerry Lawler in Memphis. And I guess it was from late 88 until it got stolen in 1990, I believe, by the Snowman, Eddie Crawford, due to a pay dispute. But then again, that's how half of the wrestling belts that were used in the territories ended up disappearing, was over pay disputes. But yeah, I've got a couple of actual replicas that the wrestling companies put out, like AEW makes a very nice replica of their world title and their other belts. But I always just like the look of that world title. So I've got one of those. I've got the Superstar Billy Graham WWF belt that I actually helped make because I actually became like a bit of a leather crafter about 15, 20 years ago, and kind of learned how to do that part of the trade. Yeah, I've also got a Mid-South North American belt, that giant monstrosity of a belt that Bill Watts called the 27 pounds of gold and silver. A lot of people have likened it to a shield because the thing is massive and it would probably stop some bullets or a sword if you wanted to defend yourself in a good fight. But that's just scratching the surface. I've got all kinds of stuff, man. It's wild how the collecting, they say it's like one of the worst habits to get into is, this wrestling belt thing, because once you scratch the surface, it's so hard to find a satisfying itch from a scratch.
Just ballpark, how many belts you got?
Right now, I actually kind of keep track right now between complete belts and some that I'm actually planning on finishing, because I do have a leather workshop in my basement. I've got about 22, and I think only 2 of those are incomplete. Like I've got sets of plates that I need to put on leather and do the leather work for. But yeah, I've got like 20 complete belts, and yeah, they range from I think as far as time frames when they were used. And mind you, I only ever owned one reused belt. None of these are reused. They're all either replicas or custom copies made by legitimate manufacturers that make belts as a profession. But yeah, the era that some of these belts, like I've got, like I said, the WWF belt. I've got the Sheet, a United States belt from Detroit. So I've just been a fan, even from the stuff from before I was born. I've got stuff from all over Mid-South, Georgia, Texas, AWA, you name it, I've probably got it somewhere.
You're still collecting now. Are you looking to add to the collection?
Oh yeah, like it's one of those things. Like it's a small community of people. It's more than it ever has been at this point. About 25 years ago, well before social media, when there was a very small group of us on Yahoo that were in these little belt groups. And that's how a lot of us communicated and networked. And we would, sell belts there, sell them back and forth to each other. A lot of these belts have gone through multiple people's hands. But yeah, it's like you're always looking for something different, something that, adds to your collection. Like right now, I've got a little bit of a direction for my collection. I've got most of the Mid-South belts, since that's kind of territory that I grew up watching. My first live show was in Shreveport, Louisiana in 1984. I saw the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, the Rock and Roll Express, against the Guerreros in a cage match, and that just stuck with me forever. So since I grew up in that area, it's kind of like I want to try and get my hands on copies of those belts. But I've also got a little section of the Road Warriors too. I've got like the Georgia National Tag Team Championship belt. I've got both AWA Tag Team belts and an NWA World Tag Team belt as well, because I'm going to try and put together a little corner of my wrestling room dedicated to the Road Warriors. So yeah, it's one of those things. It just never, there's always something out there that you want or need, and something in a real collector, you're going to find some way to fit it into your collection. So yeah, it's not a cheap hobby, but you figure out ways to make it work.
Well, what's the most you've ever spent on a belt? Don't tell me which one, but just say if you ever regretted plopping out a bunch of cash, you're going, oh gosh, what did I just do?
Well, it's funny. I know I've got a lot of friends that have spent some serious money on belts. Like I know people that own ring used belts. I could tell you where a lot of ring used belts are, and I've never spent that kind of money. I love to travel, and I'm a very frugal traveler. When it comes to my collecting, I will try and find a deal or find a motivated seller, if you will. And I've managed to find some good deals that way. I mean, honestly, the most I ever spent on a belt was probably $2,000. Probably. Yeah, it was about $2,000. But I know people that I've sold belts for more than double that. So it's, there's people out there that if they want something in their collection bad enough, they'll pay a premium for it, depending on, who made it, what its history is. And yeah, for ring used, you don't even want to talk about ring used belts. Those things are just insanely expensive, especially ones that were used on national programming. Like any WWF belt from the 80s or 90s, or even today. I mean, you're talking well into 5 figures and more.
So basically, you're telling me that ring belts can be sort of like a Rolex watch, because Rolexes appreciate with age. You're telling me that some of the belts do too.
Well, I have a very good friend of over 20 years that I met back in those Yahoo groups that I was discussing a few minutes ago. And he has managed to become one of the main guys that brokers a lot of these deals with former wrestlers, former promoters, and high dollar collectors. And yeah, and the funny thing is that since you mentioned Rolexes, that's what he will also offer people. Like, yeah, he will tell people if they have Rolexes, he will do a trade for a high value belt, because that's something else that, like you said, it appreciates over time. It appreciates in value.
Amazing. And you were telling me before that about the purple backing on the old WWF belt. I think that was Graham's belt first, if my memory serves correct. Before Backlund had, I believe, I saw him in a match in Albany with the purple backing, and it looked great.
That's another thing too. Besides just being a collector, I love the history of belts. I've always done research, and I could go through magazines and kind of pick up where the first time this belt was used, and that belt was changed to a different design. But yeah, the Superstar Billy Graham belt was originally we all know the story from Tom Burke, how he found Pedro Morales' belt in the pawn shop. He was given a new belt right at the end of his reign, and that became the belt that Bruno Sammartino held during his second reign. It was the same plates, but it had like a red crocodile strap on it. And then once he lost it to Superstar Billy Graham, during his reign is when they changed it to it was a purple leather strap with a green leather on the backside. And then eventually, once Backlund won that, it was changed to a blue strap, I believe, with red on the back. So it's just, I have an eye for detail, as well as, I'm willing to put in research just for silly things like this that I care about and want to know more about. So yeah, there's a little lineage of that particular belt for you.
Well, if there's one thing this conversation taught me, is that the belts weren't made of real gold, and I'm upset. No, I'm just kidding. But no, for a while I thought, the way they talked about the prestige of the belts and anything, that there may be some gold usage. Has that ever occurred?
To my knowledge, no. Obviously, the things are shiny, but it's all gold plating, nickel plating, sometimes chrome. Ric Flair's belt that he introduced right at just over 40 years ago, Valentine's Day 1986, Battle of the Belts 2 in Orlando, Florida. When he debuted that big gold belt, he was hyping it up as being $40,000. And in all reality, just because I have a friend that went to the same exact belt buckle maker that made that back in 1986, he had one made about 15 years ago. And it's the second one that they ever made behind the original. And they said they would never do it again just due to the sheer amount of labor that went into it. He told me, and it's not a secret, it's not like he confided in me, but he paid well over 10 grand for that. So it was all hand engraved. They call it German silver, which is not really silver at all. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it was definitely, a very valuable belt. But as far as them being actual gold and actual diamonds, forget about it. Those things you'd be held up at gunpoint if you were if you were a champion pro wrestler walking into Madison Square Garden and they know you had your belt on you. Nah, that thing wouldn't be with you for long. With those things are solid gold.
Absolutely not. Right. So basically, are you happy with your collection? What do you see happening in the future? Is this one of your main hobbies, would you say?
I've always had a hobby or two going on at the same time. I've always been a pro wrestling fan my entire life for well over 40 years. It's clearly my favorite hobby as far as wrestling goes, as well as traveling to go see wrestling, even, modern day product. I love to go to the live matches still to this day. Another hobby of mine is physical media, whether it be VHS tapes as well as, obscure things like Betamax, Laserdisc. And I've got a lot of wrestling on those formats as well. So I've always got a hobby or two going on, but yeah, probably easily my most expensive hobby and the one that I probably devote most time to is probably the belts.
There you go. Well, Joey, I just want to thank you for being here. I come into this with no personal opinion about wrestling belts because I just never got into them. I think that the craze started way back when I was in the magazines. We started to have some ads with belts in them and things like that. And never really had the time to really get into them or learn about them. So you kind of opened my eyes about what the business is like. If you had any advice for somebody hearing this and wanted to go buy belts, what would you tell them to do?
Well, nowadays it's a lot different than it for collectors than it was, say, 15 years ago. Reggie Parks, the king of belts, he passed away. His company basically no longer offers belts for fans. Every once in a while, Dave Milliken, who has taken over, he will make something for a promotion like AEW. Probably the best way for somebody starting out, WWE and AEW both produce official, replicas of their championships. And the quality is so much better now than it was whatever in the early or late 90s, early 2000s when they first started. Those things were like, really thin little stamp plates on this really cheesy fake leather. They just make really, really good high quality replicas now. And that's the easiest and probably the safest way to go for collectors nowadays. When it comes to older stuff, for an older fan like me and probably most of your listeners out there, there are some sketchy people out there that I would not necessarily recommend. But if anything, you can always find somebody that has something for sale. I wouldn't necessarily go the route of trying to have it made for you because, the rest has been around so long that the processes have developed. There's pretty much all the belts that have ever been made have been made. So you can always find it for sale secondhand somewhere instead of trying to get it made because, there's some shady fly-by-night operations out there right now.
So anyway, I've learned a lot in this conversation, and I thank you for being here. I met you via Facebook where you can find Joey Broussard. He's there talking about all things wrestling. Joey, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Hey, Bob, I love listening to your show. I started hearing you with the when you were collaborating with John Arezzi a couple of years ago. Then when you went out on your own, I've been listening to you ever since. And yeah, you always have great guests, and they're always a good listen. And yeah, I'm really happy to have been able to make an appearance.
Well, thank you for filling me in on this subject matter. I come in completely bald with no knowledge whatsoever. It's something that escaped me. It's just something I didn't really even consider, but I decided to do a whole show on collectibles, and you've been a big part of that. So thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. I'm happy to have been able to open your eyes a little bit to all the expensive hobbies that are all involved in the wrestling business.
Everything is expensive now, including tickets, right?
Oh yeah, forget about it. WWE is out of it. I don't even really enjoy WWE to begin with. I like going to AEW, but the smaller shows are where it's at. Your local promotions, most of them nowadays can get, name talent in there because so many people are in between, gigs with the big companies. I like going to see Major League Wrestling because you can get a front row seat for less than $100, and they're all over the country. So I'm sure they're going to be near you soon. And it's always a good time. You meet a lot of cool fans, you meet, cool people. There's usually meet and greets. The wrestling business, it's probably hotter than it's ever been. It's not the same as it was 40 years ago, but it's still fun and I still enjoy it.
Joey, thank you for being here. It's been a real pleasure. And we'll talk again soon. How's that sound?
I can't wait, Bob.
Joey Broussard, everybody. Well, there goes another one in the books for the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We want to thank you all for listening to this special episode about, collectible stuff, belts and cards and figurines and whatever you want to call them, action figures. Some people just call them dolls. They probably get belted for it, but wrestling fans are anyway. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith you'll find singing right next to the immortal bluesman, B.B. King, on the main page. Speaking of singing, Robert Charles was my stage name as a bluesman, Charles, and all of that music is still available on iTunes, Amazon, YouTube Music. Go down the list, just type in Robert, Charles. The great achievement of my musical career was an album called Metropolitan Blue, produced by the great blues legend Duke Robillard. We're available at all the other social media too. Outdated_Bob or just Bob Smith. I use the same publicity photo that I use on Facebook. It's 12 years old. I better take a new one. I'm lying to you. I don't look that good anymore at all. So, or at least that young anyway. That's it for now. I better shut up. Oh, and by the way, if you want to get involved with the ongoing adventures of the show, there is a fan club called the Outdated Wrestling Hour Fan Club, where for a nominal fee, you can help perpetuate the ongoing adventures of this podcast, the Outdated Wrestling Hour, as well as the Outdated Entertainment Hour. And I will say again, I am facing a health problem and some operations that are going to hack me open probably 2 or 3 times this year. I will say we are going to strive to not miss a week of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. One way, by hook or by crook, we're going to have a show for you every Friday, just like always. I'm trying to put some shows in the can, so no matter what happens, we'll be here for you every week. It's a known fact in the podcast world. You disappear and you're gone. Nobody's coming back. Podcasts are like that. I've seen it happen to 1,000 different shows, and good shows too, where people take a hiatus and they don't explain it, and the next thing you know, the listenership dwindles. I don't want that to happen. I'm very happy to have all of you that listen each and every week, and I'm not going to let you down no matter what's going on here. The OWH continues on unabated, even if I'm laid up a little bit. Keep looking forward to the show each and every Friday. And once again, we do appreciate your listening. On your favorite podcast app, if you could subscribe or just give us a like or whatever the app asks for, please do that. It really does make a difference. And I'm old school because I'm old. Tell your friends about the show, The Outdated Wrestling Hour. If you enjoy it, maybe your best wrestling friends will enjoy it too. That's it for now. My name is Bob Smith, and remember what Ringo Starr says, particularly these days. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.